Hi, this is Eric Smith. Time to do another quick look video, and I thought I would do it from 2 Kings, the 2nd chapter, verses 23 through 24, and the Word of God reads this way. And he went up from thence unto Bethel, and as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city, and mocked him, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back, and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 and 2 children of them. In 2 Kings, in the 2nd chapter, we see that the prophet Elijah has passed the torch to the prophet Elisha. Elijah went up in a whirlwind right in front of Elisha, and Elisha now has the mantle of being the prophet. And when you go further in this chapter, there were other prophets, 50 of them, that weren't even really sure that Elijah had gone up. But eventually they believed Elijah, and Elijah showed himself to be a prophet. But in verse 23 we get, and he went up from thence unto Bethel. So Elisha was going to Bethel, and as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city and mocked him. So the verse says, little children mocked him. But I want you to understand something. In the King James translation, they weren't little children like 5, 6, or 7. In other translations, it actually says youths. So these were not little kids. These were actually young men. They were probably in their late teens, maybe even in their early 20s. So we don't want to get the impression that these are children. But it says, they mocked him. And then it says, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. So this is how they were mocking Elisha. They called him bald head. Now, Elisha could have actually been bald. He was an older prophet. But this term was derogatory. It was an insult. It was actually sarcastic taunting by these youths. They were taunting the man of God. So verse 24 says, And he, and that's Elisha, turned back and looked on them and cursed them in the name of the Lord. So we see Elisha curse these young men in the name of the Lord. And what that means is Elisha called upon God to deal with the youths as God saw fit to do so for insulting him. And this is how God took care of it. At the end of the verse it says, And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 40 and 2 of them. And what this basically means is 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled the youths. And there was 42 of the youths. This is the first time it gives you the number. Dear Christian, when you read this account, particularly in the King James, it seems like a very disturbing account. It seems like little kids were mocking a prophet, and the prophet cursed them and sent bears to maul a bunch of children. But this is not the case. These were young men that were being mauled. And we could still look at that and go, well, wait a minute. God had bears maul these youths because they mocked a prophet? Well, this is why. Because, like today, a lot of people, they disregard God and they don't take seriously the holiness and righteousness of God. And the people of Israel and people around Israel did the same thing back in these times. And if you mocked a man of God, a prophet of God, you were basically mocking God. Because Elisha was sent on the authority of God. And since he was sent by the authority of God, to mock him was to mock God, because God was giving his prophetic word through Elisha. So when he says, Thus saith the Lord, it's important. But if you're going to mock the messenger, you're going to mock who sent the messenger, and that was God. And sometimes the punishment can be harsh. This shows the holiness and righteousness of God. You don't mock God, and you don't mock God's man. To do so could actually bring death. And that's what happened in the case of these youths that were calling out to Elijah and mocking him. So this is 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 23 through 24. I know when we read it in the King James, it seems like a really disturbing account. But what it should remind us is this, that God is holy and righteous, and God is not to be mocked. And in a theocracy of Old Testament Israel, you really didn't do that, because the punishment could actually be death. As always, if the videos on this channel have encouraged your Christian walk, and edified you in any way whatsoever, but you have not subscribed to my channel yet and you want to, hit the button. If you want to leave any comments, please do so, but please do not be snarky. Please do not be profane. We want to be Christ-like in everything we say and do. And until we do another quick look, remember something, Christian. When we read these accounts in the Old Testament, don't think that God is unrighteous or unfair or wrong to have such a hardcore, harsh punishment when we would say, well, wait a minute, God, I wouldn't do that. Of course you wouldn't. God is holy and righteous, and he's just to punish these youths. They were mocking Elisha. You do not mock the prophet of God, because you mock the prophet of God, it's like you're mocking God, and God will not be mocked. And that's the context of why these youths were mauled by two bears. We have to remember that and not think that God is unrighteous to do so. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching, and God bless.